Hello, my name is Simon Osterhof. I come from Vsterbotten in Umeå, and I've been the project manager for the Creative Edge project there. I just have to get up my notes, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about our mentoring program and creating communities of practice, and how we've sort of ended up thinking that they're sort of the same. The Creative Edge partner, like I said, in Västerbotten and the organization that I work for is called Vsterbotten, and it's a regional resource center for the audiovisual industry in our region. And in theory, one could say that it's a regional branch of the Swedish Film Institute. We have 4 core missions in our work. The first and most visible one is that we co-produce shorts and documentaries, roughly 10 to 15 projects each year. And the second part is that we host and support other people's screenings of films that we have made and films that other people have made. The third is film education, which is not, like we've been talking about now, third level or even second level. It's that we have a film teacher employed who school teachers in normal schools, I don't know what you even call it, elementary schools, can use, and he can come out to them and do workshops, classes. He arranges film competitions and things like that. It's a part of our objective to do talent development. And the fourth, and the one that I sort of represent, is the industry development part of our organization, and that usually happens through EU projects, like, say, Creative Edge. And a little bit about our region to understand why we have done things the way we've done them. I assume that not a lot of people here have been to our region or know much about it, but it's called Vsterbotten in the north of Sweden. There's 260,000 people living there, and the county is roughly 2/3 the size of the Republic of Ireland, so it's a pretty big region. You can drive for 5-6 hours and still be in the same county, which means that it's sparsely populated, to say the least, but in a very different way than Ireland, because more than 2/3 of the people live in those 2 towns, Umeå and Skellefteå, and the rest is basically forests and mountains and a few smaller villages. But it's very concentrated to those two cities. And we've, in the Creative Edge project, we're trying to build on the strengths of having such peripheralities, being far away from power centers like Stockholm instead of focusing on the weaknesses. And the audiovisual industry in our region is very strong, which is very fun for us. It reaches from big companies like North Kingdom to the left there, who work with 100% of their clients are international. They've done stuff for the new Hobbit movie. They work with Coca-Cola, with Adidas. And then we have tiny one-person companies like, actually Pauline showed him before, David Sandberg is a film director who is doing this Kung Fury movie with Thor. So it's reaching from the big giants to the small companies. And when we talk about audiovisual industry and our mission, we just say moving images, really, which is everything from film through web stuff all the way to computer games. And in our region, we also have 2 universities. The big one is Umeå University, which has 36,000 students. And then there's a small branch of Luleå University in the region as well, with 1,600 students. This means that roughly 15% of the population are enrolled in third level education, and in Umeå, where I live, over 1/3 of the population is students. So what's the problem then? It's that the business world and the academic world in our region, especially in the audiovisual industry, have a history of being very far apart. They don't work with each other as much as they could or as much as they should. Students from the university start very few new companies, especially in the audiovisual industry, and the companies that do exist very seldomly recruit new graduates to work in their businesses. And there's been a few examples very recently of gaming companies in the region who have stated that they had to say no to work because they couldn't hire qualified people to work on those bigger projects, which is ironic in a region where hundreds of graduates graduate every year in stuff like computer sciences, game design, game programming, interaction design, and animation. So what we've tried to do in the Creative Edge project is to bridge the gap between talent and industry, and we've done it by mentoring and meeting points. I'm going to start talking a little bit about the mentoring program that we have done. It ran under 5 months in the beginning of 2013, and the idea about a mentoring program for creatives was a big part of our involvement in the Creative Edge project from the start. But the concept wasn't as easy to get rolling as we had anticipated. And the idea was from the start to do it for creatives, not the entrepreneurial side, but the creative side of being a creative business owner. And we really went full out and tried to recruit for this through Facebook and Twitter. We sent lots of newsletters, we called people, we spoke to the unemployment agency, the universities. And then students came back being like, is it gonna take a lot of my time? And we were trying to help them, but that was very surprising to us. But that's what happened, and we did get a lot of applications in the end, but we ended up with 5 mentee teams. A few of them had just 1 person in each, and there were 2 with more, and they each had 1 mentor within companies in the audiovisual industry. And what was great about it was that most of them got access to more than 1 employee within that company that their mentor worked. And we also had a part of the mentoring program in Kemitornio, in that region. And the idea was pretty simple. It was all our research pointed us towards doing a pretty strict program where we ran meetings, at least in the beginning, and had forms to fill out about their goals, their purposes, when the next meeting was, and everything like that. And it proved very true in an ironic way that that's the way to do it. But what happened was that a lot of the mentees thought that this was a big hassle when they were in the program, that they had to, every time they had a meeting with their mentor, they were supposed to contact me as the mentoring program coordinator and just write a few simple sentences about what did they discuss, when's the next meeting, and what are they working towards. They liked this as an idea, but they weren't thrilled to actually do it. And the ironic part is that when we were done and we requested feedback from them, they said that it would have been nice if all of the meetings had been preset and if everything had been decided for them. So it was hard to know what they actually wanted. But the results from 5 mentee groups was 1 internship. It was the group of 5 who was at a local gaming company. One of them then spent 3 months at the company doing his graduation sort of essay. We got 2 funding applications to our organization for a new film project. There was 1 startup who actually said that he would never have started his company if he didn't have his mentor to walk him through everything. And then there's 2 of the mentorships kept on going afterwards. And the next steps is what I think is interesting with this, because we started thinking when we were looking at it afterwards that we had done it all wrong, and that the focus was wrong to begin with, because the fact that audiovisual businesses in the region and new talent and graduates don't meet, it doesn't have to be a graduate problem. We decided the other way around, that it's a business problem, it's an industry problem. And all of the potential mentors we contacted, they showed a lot of enthusiasm, and the mentees were usually a bit more hesitant. So the next thing we're going to do is we use these insights, and we're going to run a completely opposite program that's not a part of the Creative Edge project, but that Creative Edge has helped design, which is an ambassador program to get the film industry to attract more young women, because it's very much a man's game, and it's a very all of the same people in it, really. So instead of going to the talent and getting them into the business, we are going to hire 5 ambassadors in the industry, whose then job it is to attract more women, and the goal is to get them to be assistants on film sets, which is usually the way that new people come into the film industry in our region. They are runners, they are electricity assistants, they can be photo assistants, all of these things, and usually it's just young guys who come into that game. And it's going to be very interesting for us to see if this can help get the stats up for young women in the film industry in the region. But another thing we realized is that the mentoring program is really just another way of doing meeting points, and the meeting points that we've done, events, conferences, have been much more successful in getting people together. And we've done 5 major events. Oh, that looks great. Oh. During the year the project's been running, and we had 750 people all in all in these events, 300 of which were young talent. And we didn't succeed in getting a 50-50 split, but 60-40 is the best we've done so far, so at least we're moving in the right direction. And what we did was that we arranged conferences, and then we made sure that there were free seats for students and graduates and talent, even if they're not in any sort of education program, so that they could take part. They could, if they had to travel, we paid for their travel. If they had to stay in a hotel to take part, we paid for that as well, and made sure that everyone had the opportunity to take part in these events. And one example that I wanted to bring up is the game dev that we arranged last year, more than a year ago now, which was a game developers conference. And we've worked with the gaming companies a bit before, but we've started to realize that it's something we need to work more with, because it's really a booming sector, and it's we think we can do a lot of good with not that much work. And all of this really comes from because it used to be like gaming companies, they fluctuated a lot. One year they could have 100 people, and then the next year they had 400, and then they had to lay off 200 people because they didn't get a new project. But that's been changing in the last few years with the indie game development. And there was the big thing in Sweden that made this a headline thing was a game called Minecraft, that I'm sure some of you have kids or friends or grandkids who've played. And it's really an amazing story. A guy makes a game in his bedroom, and then he puts it online, and when he wakes up the next morning, he's a millionaire. And that was not even the full game, it was just a demo of the game, an alpha demo even. And that sort of changed everything, because then the gaming companies get the money themselves, and they form more stable companies, and they can hire people in the long term instead of just doing it for maybe 6 months contracts and so on. And that's the big example, the company that made like, I don't know, 200 million euros in a year. But even in our small region, there's been a company called Turborilla who created a motorcycle game just for fun, and then we put it online and got 8 million downloads in a few months. So now the question is, how can we make that happen more? And one part of that was arranging this conference. We had, let's see, 100 people in this, and we sold out before we had started doing any advertising, so we saved all that money. And I would say that there are maybe 100 people employed in gaming in our region, but we also opened the event for our friends just across the Gulf of Bothnia in Finland, in Oulu, where Nokia had a big factory for many years, and then they closed it down, and then they have a huge population of very highly educated, very experienced engineers who have started game companies. And so we had 30 people from there, maybe 20 students from our region, and then 50 gaming professionals from our region during a whole day. And we had speakers from the US, the UK, and Sweden, as well as some local gaming companies who got to go up on stage and present what they were working on. And this was, our focus wasn't business, our focus was fun. We wanted to make an event that they wanted to go to as gamers, as just normal people, because the business sector of the gaming industry isn't very strict. You won't see a lot of ties. So we just had tried to focus on having fun, and then in the evening there was a big party with a game room where everyone could show off their products. And it was a big hit, and there was a lot of established new relationships, companies that started working together, which was very nice. And a lot of good that came out of it. And the best example, my favorite part really, was a group of students from a game school in our region presented one of their games, and then another speaker who is the CEO of a major company in Sweden that publishes games, just asked a question that wasn't a question, just stood up and told them to call him when they had finished the game and graduated. So that was very nice. And insights is a big word, but what we learned doing these events through Creative Edge is really a confirmation of what we thought we knew from before, that the businesses in our region, they want to meet, they need to meet, and they usually don't do it on their own. They can have smaller things, like they do some gaming pubs where a few of the companies meet, but usually they don't get the chance to come together for a full day or maybe even 2 days and be together and just be social and have fun. And the recipe for us has been pretty simple. It's just to take all these creative people, put them in a room together, keep them well fed, maybe add a few beers in the evening, bring about a sense of cooperation instead of competition, and keep them inspired, and then good things will come out on the other side. New ideas that become new products, and in the end, hopefully more jobs in the region. And that's what I have to say about our part. Yeah, any questions, and we can save them until after Anitra has spoken.